The news from Afghanistan is growing increasingly grim. After a summer of major operations and high casualties, the top commander, U.S. Army General Stanley McChrystal, has sent the White House a sobering assessment. The message? He may need tens of thousands more boots on the ground to avoid what he calls failure. As the debate in Washington heats up over how many U.S. troops should be sent into the war in Afghanistan, it's important to remember that the United States is already in the midst of ramping up its forces. The previously approved buildup began just months ago, with Marines pouring into southern Afghanistan. The challenges these young Americans face on the ground, their successes and their struggles, serve as an important case study for the benefits and costs of further escalation. Our reporter-producer Lucian Reed spent several weeks with the Marines as they established and began to carry out their mission. To provide an added perspective, Lucian was joined for some of that time by Seth Moulton, who served 4 active tours as a Marine officer in Iraq. This is what they witnessed and brought back for you to see and think about. These Marines at Camp Leatherneck in Helmand Province, Afghanistan, are part of the first wave of the 22,000 additional troops that President Obama ordered here earlier in the summer.
1, 2, and 3.
They are here to implement a strategy that is modeled after what commanders see as their successes in Iraq. An entire Marine battalion, about 1,500 men in total, has been assigned to a single district, an area with a population of less than 80,000.
81s will be landing here at LZ3, and 3rd Platoon will be moving there.
The Marines' job is to drive out the insurgents, secure the district, and reintroduce government into an area that has been under Taliban control for almost a year. American troops haven't been in this part of Afghanistan in significant numbers since August 2008, but several British units have been operating in the area, manning small outposts and training Afghan soldiers. A few of these British soldiers will be traveling with the Marines.
And then they'll just withdraw and leave it booby-trapped with IEDs, so I'd be very, very cautious.
The British soldiers repeatedly warned the Marines about IEDs, improvised explosive devices, which in the last 6 months have become the biggest single threat to troops here. In the past, coalition forces in Afghanistan worried mostly about small arms attacks, being shot at with machine guns and mortars. Now, more than half of all U.S. casualties here are caused by roadside bombs, a situation that increasingly resembles the dark days of the war in Iraq. As dusk falls on Camp Leatherneck, the Marines of Alpha Company ready themselves for the helicopter assault that will drop them under cover of darkness in the countryside of the district of Nawa. As the sun rises, the Marines begin their trek through the farmland of the Helmand River Valley. The Marines spend most of their day in tedious silence, cautiously traversing miles of countryside that could be booby-trapped with IEDs. These are the images of a war where the threats are ever present, but usually invisible. America has a long and complicated history in Helmand Province. In 1957, the U.S. government launched a multi-million-dollar irrigation project here that, over the next 2 decades, helped transform what used to be a desert valley into highly productive farmland. The impact of the project was so significant that this area became known for a time as Little America. But in 1979, with the Soviet invasion, the project ended, and the U.S. hasn't had much of a presence in Little America since. During the war, U.S. troops have passed through to clear the area of Taliban, but there have never been enough troops to hold the province, and the Taliban have always returned. After the Marines left last summer, some residents of Helmand faced violent reprisals from the Taliban for their cooperation with U.S. troops. A big challenge for the Marines is convincing the locals that this time they're going to stay.
We're pushing up here to set a permanent security to keep the Taliban out.
Let him know we're not going anywhere. We're gonna stay here.
The Marines are in the countryside for several days. The hours of silent trekking interrupted only by these brief encounters with farmers. These are the mundane first steps in building a relationship with the local community.
John.
What can we do for you?
Well, we're kind of we've heard some reports that Taliban have been coming around in the area.
At night, the Marines sleep in schools and houses in the communities. The Taliban seem to have fled in advance of the Marines' arrival, so for the most part, the Marines' run-ins with locals are uneventful. But it's impossible to be sure that some of these local farmers aren't moonlighting as insurgents. In one house, a British soldier finds a stockpile of fertilizer that could be used to make explosives.
If he's using the fertilizer on his land, then there's no way he can have a year's supply there. He has the equipment here to make homemade explosives, and he has enough fertilizer for us to arrest him today.
The man claims he is storing the fertilizer on behalf of other landowners for whom he works. In the end, the decision is made by an Afghan officer. Although there are only a handful of Afghan National Army soldiers traveling with the Marines, they are the ones responsible for making arrests.
He's saying, as far as I know, these are ordinary people.
He must let the owner know that we are going to mark this property, okay, and that it will be checked again in the future.
Although the Marines face surprisingly little resistance during their push into Helmand, it's not all easy going.
Hey, Staff Sergeant.
Yeah.
Hey, give me on the small right here. Give me on the small.
Small? You see him?
Hey, which way do we put the mortars?
You don't orient it that way, in that direction.
We're going to channel north.
A firefight breaks out between insurgents and another Marine unit a few hundred meters up the road.
Real fucking close.
Yeah.
Hey, Roger, that's an impact right by our position. You got friendlies, 6 o'clock from your position, where the 240 fire just came from.
But the Taliban seem to know that they're outnumbered, and after 10 minutes, they've disappeared into and beyond the tree line. This brief encounter illustrates one of the biggest conundrums facing military and civilian leaders. With superior numbers and firepower, it's relatively easy for U.S. troops to push the Taliban out of an area, but how do they keep them out? For some insight into that question, we visited the nearby village of Nawa, the district's administrative center. Another Marine company arrived here a few weeks earlier. Commanders say things have already gotten better. Lieutenant Colonel William McCullough.
For 14 months, this district center was essentially under siege. The local police controlled from 500 meters to 1,000 meters outside of this base. And this was an isolated island. Fewer and fewer people coming to the market. Fewer and fewer things happening. constant fighting just right at the tree line outside of here.
Lieutenant Colonel McCullough is the commander in charge of the entire Marine Battalion in the district of Nawa. He came to Afghanistan after 2 tours in Iraq's violent Anbar province, where he helped train the Iraqi army and worked as a liaison to tribal leaders. As he takes on the monumental task of securing the district of Nawa and bringing normalcy back to its people, he is working closely with 2 other men. Ian Purvis, a civilian stabilization advisor with the British government, and Captain Gus Biggio, a civil affairs officer attached to the battalion. They have high hopes for what they can accomplish.
People here in Helmand Province, many of them remember when this area was called Little America, and they were happy, safe, economically viable, and we hope that we can help get them back to that stage.
Captain Biggio left a job as a Wall Street lawyer to join the reconstruction effort in Afghanistan. He told us that the situation in Nawa has changed dramatically since he arrived. The Friday market, almost deserted a few weeks ago, is now thriving.
Hold on, hey.
It was amazing to see. This was something that hadn't occurred for about 8 or 9 months. And 2 weeks ago, 1,000 to 1,500 people came to the district center to buy and sell things, to bring their livestock, bring other goods that they had, because they felt safe. I asked, the first day I saw this happen, I asked 50 people, why did you come back? The answer that I got 50 times was because it's safe. The second week, there was even more people here.
But Captain Biggio was quick to add that the success and visibility of the market also poses a risk.
I think it's a great indication that people are starting to feel comfortable with the security situation. But that also presents a key target for IED emplacement and suicide bombers.
Our cameras captured firsthand the threat posed by IEDs during a convoy into Nawa. This armored Marine vehicle was hit by an IED just in front of the vehicle carrying our reporters. There were only minor injuries, but it's a stark reminder that while the security situation has improved in Helmand Province, the Taliban hasn't yet surrendered this area to coalition forces.
Did your head hit the top or your seatbelt just...
I don't remember.
After the explosion, the Marines immediately set to work interviewing locals who might know something about the bombers and combing the area for other explosives. When they find another IED up the road, an explosive ordnance disposal team detonates it from a safe distance. Later, we are shown the simple homemade device that triggered the IED.
We got several D-cell batteries here taped to the series circuit. Here we got 2 pieces of wood separated with rubber. On the inside, there could be any type of metal contact, such as nails or sheet metal. 10 to 15 pounds. Detonate this device, close the circuit.
These homemade explosives are deadly to Afghan civilians as well. A bomb built to be triggered by a mere 10 or 15 pounds can rip apart an armored vehicle, but could just as easily be set off by a child. According to Marine commanders, during the week we were in Nawa, over 40 residents of Helmand Province were injured or killed by IEDs. Despite the ongoing risks, the security situation has improved enough to arrange a visit from the provincial governor.
You'll see that as you walk around the bazaar later today.
He arrives from the capital city of Lashkargah to hold a shura, a meeting of elders that is a crucial step toward re-establishing government in this area. British stabilization advisor Ian Purvis.
The government here is very, very weak because the Taliban has essentially held the district of Nawa for the past 12 months. So we are starting from a very, very low level.
At the Shura, the provincial governor tries to persuade the elders to support the Marines' efforts in Helmand. An important district administrator also arrives. His name is Haji Muhammad Khan. Although he is from Nawa, for the past year he has been living out of town, out of fear for his safety.
نو بیا ماته دا ورونه هم وویل هغه دلته راغلي وه زامنو مې هم راته وویله چې نن شپه طالبان راځي زموږ دا ګرده کوهول چې ته د ولسوالۍ ماوین یې موږ به هم په خطر کې یو مړه به سو در سره ته به مړ شي ته به د دې ځای څخه په هره طریقه چې د دې ځای څخه به وځې لښکرګاه ته به ځې په هغه ورځ د جمعې بیا زه رئیس ولم دغه ته ورته خلاص کړه نو ورته
Now that the district administrator has returned, the Marines ask for his help in convincing other government officials to come back to Nawa.
Does he think they will come back, or does he think that they will be afraid to come back? They
will come in. Okay. This may be an opportunity. Your return is a big symbol to a lot of people.
The Marines take a long walk outside Nawa with the district administrator and the governor of Nawa. As they pass canals that the U.S. helped construct over 40 years ago, they discuss a new development project, building a road to connect the district center with these outlying areas.
Is there a road on the other side of this canal that if we made a bridge?
Colonel McCullough believes it's projects like this to improve the security and quality of life of local residents that are the key to winning over the sympathies and cooperation of Afghan citizens.
Taliban supporters are in the minority. The majority of the people don't support the Taliban, nor do they support ISAF. What they support is anybody who brings a sense of normalcy back to their life. If that's us, they support us. If that's the Taliban, they support the Taliban.
At the end of their walk, the Marines and Afghans reach the district administrator's house. The grass has grown tall in his absence. The house has been ransacked, and most of his belongings are gone. But there is hope for rebuilding.
Your home right now is kind of representative of the whole district. Just came through a bad time.
And there will be one day that you will be sitting in that guest room with me, drinking tea, eating food with me. Inshallah.
I believe it, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We have a lot of work in front of us.
But it
all can be done.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a promising beginning, but Lieutenant Colonel McCullough emphasized that it is just the beginning.
It could be tempting for people to say, it looks good, let's send them somewhere else. But it's not one yet. This is a long-term campaign plan. 1st Battalion, 5th Marines is slated to stay in Nawa through the end of the year, and another Marine battalion is already scheduled to take over for them. For now, everything is in place to continue a strategy that seems to be working, if only in one district. But as the debate over troop levels continues in Washington, no one can say whether civilian leaders will send enough troops to spread this strategy to other parts of Afghanistan. And no one can say exactly how long troops will have to stay here in order to make the current stability permanent. Lieutenant Colonel McCullough couldn't tell us when the Afghan National Army will be ready to take over full responsibility for Helmand Province. It's possible Americans will lose patience long before that happens.
The key factor now is time. At the end of the day, the local population is going to sit on the fence. They have got to be convinced that the government of Afghanistan is here to stay, because they've seen this all before. Over the past 15, 20 years, they have seen regimes come and go, governments come and go, and they know all of these are transient. For them, they still have suspicions that this one is transient, and time will be the critical factor.
U.S. Marines and their experiences in southern Afghanistan. When we return, a discussion with our two reporters on this story. Their thoughts about life on the front lines, coming up next.